All right. Hello. Oh, I got to get some better light here. Hello, 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 Home Care Breakthrough family. How are you guys doing? So I just realized that the last 2 weeks, when we schedule the event, it's showing the wrong time. So we're gonna get that fixed. Hopefully, you guys can catch this on the replay. If you're joining us live, say hello, hello. Let me know where you're calling in from. If this is you guys watching the replay, just click hashtag replay and let us know where you're calling in from. But today's an important topic because truth of the matter is that I come across a lot of home care owners. I was one of them, where at some point, right, at some point in your business, we experience overwhelm. How many of you guys come in the chat box at some point in time in your business have experienced some version? What's up, Jeffrey? Some version of overwhelm in your business. And it doesn't matter what stage of business you're at. I come across owners all the time. Like I remember my startup phases. What's up, Mike? How are you? Right. My startup phase was a lot of overwhelm for me. It was just like almost like drinking from a fire hose. What's up, Dan? How are you, sir? And then even past that, right? Even when we had some growth, I experienced some overwhelm. And then the growth happened and I experienced, what's up, Mike? And then I experienced some overwhelm. And I bring this up because I get it. I know what that feels like, right? We're trying to run a business. We're trying to serve people. We're trying to create something that serves people, but is also profitable. And then we get sucked in, right? We get sucked in for a number of different reasons. We're going to talk about the top 6 reasons today, but I know what that feels like. And it's one of the reasons why I do what I do, because it impacted my life. It impacted my relationships. It impacted the time that I had with my kids. It impacted my peace of mind, right? So if any of this relates to you guys or relates for you guys, comment in the chat box. Let me know. Yeah, I've experienced some overwhelm. I'm ready to get rid of this. I'm going to talk about the top 6 things that I see. So keep in mind, guys, I work with hundreds. At this point, it's been thousands of home care owners all over the world. And I start to see patterns, right? When you're doing this for a while, right? I did it in my own business. At the time, I was also part of a franchise. So you talk to other business, home care owners. And then when you get a chance to sort of look under the hood of the different business owners, you start to see patterns. Right. So in the last 4 or 5 years, I've been doing coaching consulting. I talk to a lot of people. Right. I've talked to the startup. I've got clients in my mastermind groups that are doing 10, 15 million plus a year. So I've seen the whole gamut. And there's a few things that stand out to me. Right. One of the things I see a lot of, and this is, I'm telling you, even $4 or $5 million businesses have run into this number one. So we're going to start with number one. It's a disease. It's a disorder. I say that jokingly. But it is. It's so rampant. It's called no one can do it as good as me-itis. Yep, that's the technical term for it. No one can do it as good as me-itis. And truth of the matter is that I went through this phase in my business, and I think a lot of other owners go through this phase. It's like we want so badly to do a good job. We want so badly to make sure that our clients are happy, that our caregivers are happy, that oftentimes, right, let's just say it's recruiting or customer service or doing the intake calls or going out and trying to, do relationship building referral sources. Oftentimes we think we can do it the best. We want to make sure it gets done right. And we hold on to things. Even if you have team members, there are times, let's be honest, how many of you guys have done this where you assign something to a team member, they don't get it right the first or the second time, and then you're just like, all right, well, let me do it. And then you jump in and then you start doing it. How many of you guys, come in the chat box, be honest, how many of you guys have ever done that where you've assigned a task to a team member, but you sort of took it back or you had your hands in it, let's just say recruiting or even scheduling, right? Your team starts scheduling, but they're not getting the people, and then you jump on the phone and you start making phone calls, and then miraculously you staff it within 20, 30 minutes, and they say they've been calling everyone. How many times has that happened to you guys, right? We've all been there, done that in some shape, manner, or form. So what happens is because we want to make sure things get done correctly or effectively, we're going to just do it ourselves. And what happens is that we all have a finite amount of time in a day, right? Let's be honest. We don't have 62 hours in a day. We all have 24 hours in a day. Typically, we're sleeping 6 to 8 hours, right? Probably 6 or 7 for new business owners, but we're trying to get some sleep. And then the rest of the time we have other responsibilities. Most of us have families or loved ones or whatever, and we got to take care of ourselves. We've got to eat. There's all these things that go into our 24-hour day. And when you get stuck on the nobody can do it as well as me-itis, what happens is you start to take on more and more responsibility, and you don't have enough time to work on the business. You don't have enough time to grow the business. You don't have enough time to scale the business. All right, we've all heard the cliche, right? You should be working on the business and not in the business. Yeah, it takes time to get there sometimes, but even in the early stages, I'm telling you, one of the best things you can do is structure time every week where you have time to actually work on the business. When I talk about working on the business, what does that mean? That means implementing a new system that you know will work better. That means implementing a new strategy, a new process, okay? So there's lots of pieces that go into working on the business and not just in it. But it starts with the ability to be able to push down roles and responsibilities. Like one of the things we do, one of the activities we do with our mastermind members is we go through this process of so we outline the tasks that we're doing as owners. So you guys can do this right now, tomorrow, today, after you watch this video, right? So we make a list of all the tasks that we're doing, right? And start in 15-minute increments. Pay attention to the things that you're doing. And then start looking at those things and figuring out which ones we can automate, delegate, eliminate. Okay, there's some things that you're doing that you truly can just eliminate. There's other things that we can delegate. There's other things that we can actually automate through the use of technology or some other tools. Because at the end of the day, I'm willing to invest in a software that's $100, $150, $250 a month if that frees up a few hours here and there for me. Does that make sense? Okay, so back to the nobody can do it as good as me-itis. Part of being willing to delegate is knowing how you can train your team. Right? There's a management tool or process that was shared with me, or I learned it years ago, that when you're training someone, right, most of us think that we're going to train someone. Sorry, there's going to be some background noise here. I'm working outside, and it sounds like they're cutting the lawn, but next door. But there's a management process that I learned. My background, I went, not that this matters, but I've got an MBA went back to school, and I got an MBA in management many years ago. I've read, studied management books, things like The 1 Minute Manager, Who's Moved My Cheese. I love it, right? Because I love business. And one of the things I've learned is most people, when you're training them, they don't hear what you're saying. They don't integrate the process. And this goes for all of us too. We don't integrate the process the first time. We're not going to perfect it the first time. I had this misperception that, hey, I was up for 2 hours last night typing out the step-by-step, and I came in today, I showed you the process, and I expect you to know it because I typed it out and I spent all this time. It doesn't work that way, right? Sometimes it takes 5 to 7 times for them to hear it for the first time. All right, I'm going to say that again. Sometimes it takes 5 to 7 times just for them to hear it the very first time. So we think, oh, we typed out this process, we showed them how to do it, boom, they should have it mastered. Doesn't work that way, right? This goes for us too. I have clients that go through my training programs the first time. They might pick up some pieces and implement some pieces, but then they have to go back a second time and a third time. And they don't have to. Some people get it, right? My daughter, I've got 4 girls. One of my kids, the first time she got on a bike and rode it, she actually stayed on. 99.9% of the population, that doesn't happen for. All my other kids, myself included, I ride a bike, I fall off a few times until I start to get, familiar with it. And then you start to get your balance. Same thing happens with any new skill. Right, when I teach people how to effectively write recruiting ads, it's not that they just write the ad the first time and boom, they've got it mastered. When I did that for myself, when I started learning advertising and how words operate, I realized that I didn't master it the first time. It just took me some time. So just because you get sucked into the nobody can do it as good as me-itis, you end up becoming the bottleneck in your own business. So effective training tool. Tell them what needs to be done. Show them how to do it. Have them do it. Provide feedback. Have them do it again until they get it. And then sometimes we have to do this 2 or 3 times. You do it one day, and then the next day or 2 days later or a week later, they're back to their old habits. So you got to have some sort of a feedback loop to make sure, did they actually get it? All right. Comment in the chat box if this makes sense, okay? Because this will help eliminate some overwhelm. When you train your team properly, when you start to automate, delegate, and eliminate, these are tools that will help you guys like completely transform your ability to start focusing on the higher level things, okay? Number 2, all right? Number 2. This is cliche, but it's not cliche. Wrong people, wrong seats, okay? In my own business, I hit a point. I hit a ceiling in my business, and I couldn't figure out why, right? I was like, oh, what's going on? You know, I feel like we'd take 2 steps forward and 2 steps back and 2 steps forward and 2 steps back. It wasn't 2 steps forward and 1 back. It was like 2 and 2, 2 and 2. And I'm like, I kept hitting this ceiling. How many of you guys have ever hit a ceiling or a plateau in your business? Right? Now, I'm not saying it's always because of this thing that I'm going to share with you or that we're talking about, but the truth of the matter is that having the wrong person in the wrong seat, and this has come into play in recruiting many times. I've had clients, and I've shared this with you guys before. I've had clients who they change the person in the seat, and their results double. Right? Instead of hiring 2 people a week, they're now hiring 4 or 5 people a week. Right? So oftentimes we're like, oh, we're going to just try to fit the pieces that we have and just have them do the things that need to get done because we're so resistant to change, or we don't want to upset someone, or there's so many reasons. How many of you guys, comment in the chat box, have you held on to someone on your team for too long? You knew that they weren't the right fit for that position, but you kept them anyway. Comment in the chat box if you've ever done this. All right? I know I did. And then we hold on, and we're like, well, if I just train them more, or maybe if I just help them with it, or maybe this. And then you get overwhelmed because you're like, you're still not making progress. And oftentimes it's because you have the wrong people in the wrong seats in the bus. You have the wrong people doing the wrong things. You have the wrong person on the team, and it's kind of like an anchor. You're trying to drive the boat forward. You've got it in full gear, and yet you don't realize that there's an anchor in the back that's dragging along the seabed floor. And you're trying to go, but this anchor is holding you back. And you know what it is, but here's what happens. In the show, and I get this. This was me. Oh my gosh, this was me. It was like for so many years, and there's still this part of me. I fight it. But there's so many years where it's like I'd get so overwhelmed, like, oh, I've got to train a new person, and it's so much work, and blah blah blah. But in the long run, that's just hurting us, right? So I'd hold on, and then I finally make the change. And after I make the change, assuming I get the right person. Okay, and there's a whole skill set on how to do that. It's learnable. It's, understanding the traits that you're looking for, the values that you're looking for. And when you go through your interview process, you look for those things. We can teach someone a role. We can teach someone the how-to. We cannot teach someone how to be more assertive, necessarily. We can't teach someone to be persistent. We can't teach someone to be friendly. Either they are those things or they're not. Can someone learn that over time? Of course, over time, yes. I believe that anyone can change if they really actually want to, right? But in the short run, I'm not investing all this money with the hopes that someone will change. So if you want to push forward, you want to stop feeling overwhelmed, make sure you have the right people in the right seats on the bus. And then the third part of that is actually having the right structure of your business, right? There's lots of different ways to structure a home care agency, but oftentimes the things that I see holding people back is they just don't have the right structure. This role, okay? And what we end up doing is we just take the pieces that we have and we sort of mishmash it all together, and then we wonder why we're not progressing, okay? Hey, what's up, Astor? What's up, Sylvie? If you guys are on here, Ebony, hello, hello. Loretta, I appreciate your comments. Renee, if you guys are on here live, just comment hello, hello, so I know you guys are here. And then if you're watching the replay, hashtag replay. All right, number 3, okay? And this is going to vary depending on where you are in business. What I mean by vary is as you get bigger, you do more of this. As you're smaller, you focus on some of the key pieces right now. And what am I referring to? Tracking, data, KPIs. You guys have heard me talk about this for ages, okay? There's a reason why I talk about it, because I am a big fan. In fact, I'm learning something called human design. It's the coolest thing that I've ever seen. My girlfriend introduced it to me, and it's like I learned based on my date of birth and when I was born, like these human design, there's an app for it. We'll get into that another time. But I'm learning my human design. My human design says, trust my gut. Okay, I do. I trust my gut, mostly. But my gut is only going to share so much. So I am a big fan of understanding my numbers and my data. Okay, because the data tells a story. There's so many times where I've thought something was going better than what it actually was. Okay, this could be related to recruiting. This could be related to converting clients and leads as they come in. I'm like, oh, we do such a good job with conversions. Okay, what's the numbers? And I do this a lot with clients. We finally get to the numbers and they're like, oh. And the only reason why this is important is because one of the most important strategies I learned from one of my mentors is something called the multiplier effect. That when it comes to recruiting or when it comes to sales, there's different components that will determine how you're going to do with revenue. So with clients, it's it's leads generated, it's assessments scheduled, it's clients closed, it's hours and lifetime value of a client. There's all these different pieces. And same thing with recruiting. It's applications, it's interviews scheduled, it's interviews showed up, it's how many people we actually hired and got started for work. So within your recruiting system, there's all these different pieces. And it doesn't have to be complicated. But what people don't realize with the multiplier effect, many of my clients do because I talk about it incessantly, it's like 3% improvement here, 4% here, 5% here, 7% here, 2% here. When you stack those incremental improvements on top of each other, your change in results is multiplied, okay? It's not the logical 1 + 1 + 1 is 3. It's like 1 + 1 + 1 is 10 or 20 or 30 because of the multiplier effect. And everyone's looking for this magic bullet. I need this, I need that. I need a new amazing recruiting system or a new recruiting tool or new recruiting website that's going to drive results. And we think we find that magical bullet and then all of a sudden everything's going to change exponentially. No, it's little changes. It's doing a little bit better here on my ad copy. It's my application process. It's how we pre-screen caregivers. It's these little incremental things that if we just got a few percentage points better, we would do better. So back to number 3. If you're not tracking it, you don't know where those incremental opportunities are, right? You don't know. And when I talk about those numbers like 3%, 5%, 2%, I'm telling you, when you see how it plays out in a chart, you can double the number of hires that you make in a year just with incremental improvements. So it's like, oh, I can't find enough caregivers. I need this magical thing and it feels so overwhelming. I need to find this new magical thing. No, we just need to get into the data, look at the numbers, and see where do we make these incremental shifts. Comment in the chat box if this is making sense for you guys. Let me know if it's making sense. I'm telling you, this is real. This is impactful. This will change the game for some of you. And if you're not tracking, then you're just going off a gut. You don't know. I think I need more applications. Well, maybe you do, maybe you don't. But if you don't have the numbers, you're not tracking, we actually don't know. We don't know where those little incremental improvements are that literally can double your results. Okay? So, number 4. This is a piece that I didn't get. Okay? So at this point, I already had a $2.5 million business, and I still was feeling overwhelmed. I have clients, $3-4 million businesses that are in the same boat that I was, and they're like, their business is doing well overall, but there's still this overwhelm where there's so many pieces and so much going on, and there's, it's like people have this fear. They're like, as you get bigger, it's more complicated and it gets harder. Well, that's a partial truth. What do I mean by that? Things can get a little bit more complicated as you get bigger. So now instead of 2 team members, you've got 5 or 6 team members. And a lot of people doing different things. And it can feel complicated. And it gives you this little temporary stretch of your own personal capacity. But that's a good thing. You're like, why is that a good thing, Greg? Well, it's a good thing because it's a sign that this next piece, and was a game changer for me, is that when I implemented this next piece, I had more control over my business. Okay? I had more control over what was going on. I had my finger on the pulse of everything without having to micromanage. How's that? Right? Because it changes. And once I had my finger on the pulse and I knew what was going on, then it made my life so much easier. Right? I wasn't feeling overwhelmed. Now, these things, guys, you don't have to be a $2.5-3 million business. You could be a $500,000 or $1 million business. But the truth is that when you start to have a management operating system in place, it makes your life so much easier. What does that mean? Okay, well, it simply means a few different things, and there's all these little pieces that go into it. It's not complicated, but it's having the right formula. It's like I didn't have the right formula until probably year 7 in my business. And once I had the quote-unquote formula, I learned. That's all it is. I learned how to do these different things. A lot of trial and error and learning from others. And I started to put these pieces in place. Everything from how do we determine what our quote-unquote strategy is? What are our benchmarks? What are we striving for? And then once we have that, what are the things that we're tracking? So back to number 3 is lack of data. But if you have the data and you have the KPIs and you have the information, right, what do we do with it, right? Because there's people on here that are tracking KPIs, but your operating system to manage the KPIs, it's not effective. Everything from your weekly meeting structure to your strategic planning to establishing the benchmarks, and then how do you hold people accountable? Okay, not complicated. And people get, I don't know, so I feel like some people get scared of the word accountability. I remember when I first implemented this, I did this with my I did it with my whole team, but with my salesperson, I thought, man, he's gonna, with all this like tracking and information and the weekly meetings, and like he's gonna think I'm micromanaging. And when I sold my company, a year later, I was talking to him, and we had some conversation, and he's like, man, I missed doing that with you. He's like, it was really helpful for him. It shifted my thought. I was like, wow. So I'm thinking, and I wasn't micromanaging, but in my mind, I'm like, maybe they feel like I'm micromanaging because I'm actually managing the business, right? And he's like, no, for him, he felt more secure. He felt more confident. He felt like he had more direction. He felt like he had a plan. And it gave him security. He actually missed it. So when you have an operating system in place that's like just very simple process, but you're doing it and you stay consistent with it, not only is it helpful for your staff, but as they're on, and all the information that's coming back to you, I call them feedback loops. All the feedback loops that are coming back to you, they tell a story. And then instead of having to focus on, then this is what happens, guys. Honestly, if you don't have an operating system in place, is you go to a training, you get some good ideas. You go to one of my mastermind sessions, you get some good ideas. You watch some of videos online, you get some good ideas. You read an article, you get some good ideas. You go to your franchise conference, you get some good ideas. Right? So you have all these good ideas, and you keep a notebook with all the stuff that you're tracking and doing, and then you try to do half of them. And then what happens is that nothing actually gets done, because you're trying to do 7-10 different things and nothing actually gets done because you don't know how to prioritize, you don't know how to focus, you don't know what the strategy is supposed to be. So you're just all over the place, and it creates overwhelm, it creates chaos in your business. But when you have an operating system, then you can scale back and get real clarity, real focus based on a process. So All right, these are the three things this quarter that we're really going to focus on. Now, those three things can be subdivided into action items. That's totally different. But we're only focusing on two or three bigger pieces. All right, guys. I'm going to go back on live and finish the rest. That's annoying. Okay.